Hey, what's up, everybody? Pat here. Great for recovering alcoholic and addict, just like every day, guys. Guys, please don't forget to subscribe. Leave the video a like. Drop me a comment, and by all means, share it with somebody who might get something out of it. Other than that, how is everybody, guys? Happy Friday. You know what that means. Of course, I made it to my home group for AA, and it's official. We're actually our meeting's going to be moving. So anybody watching the video that's part of the group, at the end, we've already paid through August, so we're staying at the Harvard Church through the end of August, and then the weekend between August and September, we're moving down to the INLHA Church down the street. I think it's like 800 feet down the road, and I signed up today to be a part of that, and I love that today, guys. You know, I've got to pick up. I don't think it's all that much to move, and I think there's a bunch of volunteers, but I like to be a part of something like that, and it's a great way to fellowship. And apparently the new room's got central heat and air and coffee, and it's a lot bigger room because it does get, like today, we got jammed in there. We had to go find extra chairs. So the space we're in now is small, and the meeting's growing, and I love that. It's so very encouraging, and I love being there. I love going there every Friday. I wish I could go there more throughout the week. And that's something I got to remember, because as I have time, if I get free in the middle of the week, I got to remember that I can just drop in there every day. And it's, I met 2 or 3 people there today, had a great time. I always have a good time, guys. Find a meeting, find a group. If you're not in recovery, then find a social circle, right? And I need that. I got to call myself out on that. I need to get out more and start doing more things socially. There's no reason not to. Anyway. Guys, today we're going to talk about being free from guilt. Freedom from guilt is the topic. Our addiction enslaved us. We were prisoners of our own mind and condemned by our own guilt. Guilt is one of the most commonly encountered stumbling blocks in recovery. One of the more notorious forms of guilt is the self-loathing that results when we try to forgive ourselves but don't feel forgiven. How to forgive ourselves so we feel it. First, we remember that guilt and failure are not links in an unbreakable chain. Honestly sharing our story with another shows this to be true. Often the result of the sharing is a more sensible awareness of the part we ourselves played in our affairs. Sometimes we realize our expectations have been too high. We can increase our willingness to participate in the solution rather than dwelling on the problem. Somewhere along the way, we discover our true selves, who we truly are. We find we are neither perfect nor the totally imperfect being we imagine ourselves to be. We need not live up to down to our illusions. We need only to live in reality. Just for today, I am grateful for my assets and accept my liabilities. Through willingness and humility, I am free to progress in my recovery and achieve freedom from guilt. There you go, guys. Again, I got a second and better. As a matter of fact, I took a little nap this afternoon, so my writing is a little harder to read than usual. But again, that's liability, and it's something I work on. I've actually been journaling a lot, and it's amazing. Most of my writing, it's almost like a different person. But I catch myself. It's when I'm rushing and I write too fast, or if I'm using the wrong side of the notebook. The coil gets in my way and it makes it harder to write. And I should just not use the back side of the pages. I can afford another notebook. But this one, and I just bring that up as an example, guys, where looking at our behaviors, talking things out, sharing them with somebody else is a great way to come to solutions. It's also a great way to alleviate our guilt. Speaking for myself, which is all I typically try to do because it's the only thing I really can. I can't speak for anybody else. But I think often we can usually equate them. Anyway, speaking for myself, I carried a bag of guilt on my shoulders. The 800-pound gorilla was, part of that was drugs. Part of it was the guilt from doing the drugs and the behaviors that come along with it, letting people down, lying to people constantly. Here's the thing, guys. Years and years before I've talked about this a little bit in the past. I was in a very, very toxic marriage early on in my marriage. My wife was a blackout drunk. I was, secretly doing meth and heroin at the time, and just, we would get in these blowout fights. And I'm not somebody to argue. Like, I usually just go on, get along. But she would just she was a blackout drunk, and she was brutal. Like, she had no idea what she was doing. I mean, but I would engage and argue with her, and it was just all this toxicity. But somewhere along the line, I started to see, like, sometimes she would wake up with this nasty hangover, and I just want to hammer her for her behaviors the night before, because I'm like, this has got to stop. It's so unacceptable. Not realizing or not acknowledging at the time that she couldn't stop then. She blacked out. She had no control over it. And I would make her feel absolutely miserable the next day, like absolutely terrible, terrible. And, yes, rightfully so, they were her behaviors. I was a blackout drunk myself. I get it. I've been there. And I woke up and I've had the consequences, guys. Try waking up handcuffed to a hospital bed, realizing you just threw away 2 years of your life and have no recollection and have no intention and no idea and just literally on a whim. I get it. There's consequences, and I paid for them. But somewhere along the lines, I realized that the damage I was doing to her verbally, right? I would never put a hand on her or anything like that, but guys, I would sit there and just, verbally drop the hammer on her, make her feel like, shit, because the hell she was putting me through the night before. And when I realized the amount of damage you do with that, I had made a conscious decision, and this is a big part of who I am today, but I made a conscious decision to do everything I could to stop hurting her intentionally, or anybody for that matter, like paying attention to the damage we can do with our words. That's what I talk about all the time, guys. We all have the power to crush somebody, but we also have that same power to uplift. And that's what I've done, is slowly over the years I've learned to use my power to uplift, and if I can't, then I try to disengage and walk away. If I can't help you, I certainly don't want to hurt you. And again, I'm not perfect. I fall short all the time, but as I've continued to implement these things in my life, I've continued to get better and better at it, and like anything else, any behavior you practice becomes the norm. And I love that about me today, guys. And it's, again, doesn't make me better than anybody else, but it's one of the behaviors that I have that I love about myself. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, guys. Yes, I enjoy being, given accolades and being complimented and being looked up to, and that's great. Nobody, everybody would. But at the end of the day, the only relationship that I have that matters is the one with myself and my higher power. So long as I continue to do things that make me feel good about myself, the person that I am, then I'm going to go out and do more of those actions. I'm going to continue to step up and be a better person, and that's going to allow better situations into my life, because at the end of the day, I understand everything that happens in my life is a direct result from the way I think and the way I act and the things that I say to other people and to myself. And that's not a sentence. That's a very empowering statement today. Back in those days, I couldn't do those things because every time I would start to get introspective, I would start to look at all the fucking behaviors that I was, doing, lying to this person that cares about me, lying to this one, not telling, just all this shit that comes along with active addiction. It is so incredibly painful, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean by the other half of the 800-pound gorilla. It was the guilt, the shame, the loathing, the self-deprecation. It was brutal. Like literally, I couldn't stop, and my wife was a big pot smoker, and I used to, back in those days, I used to enjoy smoking pot. I have nothing against trees. I won't do it now because I won't do anything that's, and again, I think that's an important part of recovery. Is in recovery, I don't think anybody should be doing anything to, mind altering, at least, the first couple of years, or regardless, guys, if you're in recovery, it's sobriety, period. So anyway, I couldn't even smoke pot because what would happen is I'd smoke pot and I'd start to think about the shit that I was doing, and it would drive me absolutely batshit crazy. I'd start feeling absolutely terrible about myself. I couldn't ignore the behaviors when I was high, so I had to stop getting, smoking weed high. I, do heroin, coke, and crack all night long, but, different story. But my point being, I couldn't do anything that shed light on my behaviors because I couldn't live with myself, and it would make me, so incredibly depressed that I wanted to hang it all up, and that's terrible. You can't think like that. Guys, today I don't have to, right? Again, I'm not perfect, but a big part of it, right? The biggest action that I've taken is sharing my story with another, being willing to be vulnerable and go out and listen to somebody else. Pay attention to somebody else, be a part of a recovery community, start to build my own recovery community. These are the things that change, right? Literally, the minute that I decided to do this channel, and I get on here and told my story online, like it literally changed the perspective, guys. It removed all that guilt and shame, because now I'm doing everything I can on a daily basis to use my story to help another. And there's no more powerful way to remove the stigma and the curse of those actions than to turn around and use them to help somebody else, and use them as a benchmark from, from where you were to where you are now. And then again, that's the only equitable equation that comparison is going to give you. But when you do it from that aspect, it's absolutely beautiful, guys. And anybody can do this. That is one thing. That is one of the most powerful statements in recovery. Anybody can get up and do exactly what I'm doing. Get up and try and share your story. Try and encourage somebody else. And then work hard to get as far as you can to use yourself as an example of what's possible. There's no faster way to feel better about who you are. Today, yes, I will occasionally have a moment where I'll witness a particular behavior that I used to be guilty of, and I will have a momentary lapse of grief, like, oh man, I hated being like that. Oh, I hated myself when I was like that. But then it's gone that quickly, and it's no longer that's not who I am, or that's not, that's who I am. It's oh, I used to be like that, and it's so much more powerful, guys, because it doesn't have that effect over me today. I am free from that guilt. And let me tell you, funny, 11:11, it is so incredibly important to be free of guilt, guys, because you cannot climb to the heights that we want to get to. At least I can't. And it's one of the reasons I like to think that I'm constantly called out and given accolades about all the things that I'm doing in my life, because I'm doing a lot of good things. And it's as simple as that, guys. It's not that I'm some superstar, or I'm special, or I'm in alignment with my soul's purpose, and I'm reaping the rewards of good seeds sown. As simple as that. Everybody will do so. Again, your situation's different, your actions will be different, your rewards will be different. But if you do the work, you will get the rewards, you will get the actions. You will get the internal sense of peace that I have now. And that is the most amazing thing, because that was the one thing that I thought would always elude me. I'm like, even in early recovery and early rehab, I didn't think I'd ever know a sense of peace. I didn't think I would ever know the success that I'm getting now. I thought it was going to be the absolute, just brutal grind and fighting that desire to use. And that's one of the most important reasons you surrender. You surrender because you have to find a way to get to remove that obsession. Whatever it takes, whether it's a million meetings a week, whether it's, speaking with the sponsor and doing the steps, speaking with the doctor, speaking with the therapist, medically assisted treatment, whatever it takes. And the reason I say this for myself is because the reason I'm happy I had the slip that I had the night that I got home from rehab was I was having this, like the minute I get off the bus, I had this overwhelming desire to smoke crack. Oh, you can't do heroin, but and again, it was that whole, I wasn't breaking it down, I wasn't working the program yet, it was the whole, I can never do drugs again, right? Overwhelming. And so I was cleaning my house, and sure enough, God made sure I found a piece, and I smoked it and immediately felt terrible about it. But it removed that obsession. He had removed the obsession. And the only way I could do that at that time was to go ahead and remind myself of just how miserable that feeling was. I was starting to glorify something that I didn't really glorify. It was just the overwhelm of the lifestyle change and the fear and the panic of not knowing what to do. And I can admit that today, and I wouldn't know any of that today. I would have just thought it was a straight obsession. But the fact that I've been working my recovery program for this long, and again, so what I did was I went out and I helped the girl and decided to do my channel and found my home group the next day. And that is my new sobriety date. That was January 6th, and that's my sobriety date. Instead of being December 3rd, my original sobriety date was Friday the 13th of December. And that's not the case anymore, and I'm okay with that. But again, in the past, I would have lied about that because nobody would have known. Yes, you know, I know, God knows, and that's all that's important today, guys. I can only continue to do what I'm doing if I'm doing so on a solid, honest foundation. I cannot be free from guilt if I'm continuing to lie to myself and to everybody around me and to my higher power. Like, the guilt will eat you up. It would eat me up, so I can't do that today. And that's big. That's the biggest changes, guys. And these can only happen when you become free from guilt. And you can only become free from guilt when you forgive yourself. And you can only forgive yourself when you change and modify the behavior and the thoughts. It's that simple, guys. These are action steps to living a better life, and any one of us can do it, and then we have to, guys. We can't walk around trying to do better if you won't allow yourself the freedom of doing so and of feeling so, right? Understand, yes, you're going to have moments of guilt and shame, particularly early on, but you don't dwell in those moments. You learn from those moments, and you keep those moments as the reason you will not allow yourself to go backwards, and then you let them go. And then you forgive yourself as you reward yourself for good behavior. Get up and the most important, guys, the most terrible or terrifying way about it and the most freeing way about it is sharing it. Whether you share it in a meeting, whether you find a therapist, whether you find a clergyman, whether you find somebody somebody you implicitly trust, but be careful where you share your private information. Make sure it's somebody you can trust, and you can always trust the halls of AA and NA. It certainly has been in my experience, and the overwhelming vast majority would agree with that. There's absolutely no question of that. But you got to do the work, guys, and you got to forgive yourself. Freedom from guilt is so incredibly beautiful, guys. I didn't think I was ever going to feel that freedom. I've felt that freedom every day since I've been out, and it's been growing and compounding daily, and it is amazing. I can honestly say I look in the mirror today, and I love the person looking back at me. And that is one of the biggest problems I dealt with in active addiction, was I hated the person I looked at in the mirror. Guys, I literally didn't look in the mirror for God, so long. I've spoken about this, and no, I've spoken about it enough. Guys, it's Friday night. Happy Friday. Thank you all so much for being here. Always remember, God loves you. I love you. Thank you so much. We will see you in the next one.